So recently I opened my Twitter, which I am persuaded that on its own is a certain form of self-punishment. I'm pretty persuaded about it recently. And I've seen this widespread narrative that is currently circulating that K-pop idols are actually idols, not singers. They don't necessarily have to know how to sing. And girl, what the hell are we talking about? If you don't want idols to sing, we can have like dance crews. We can have beatboxers. We can have like wild hummers, like we can do that. But babe, if you want to have an idol, they will have to sing if they do have vocal songs and vocal pieces. But without getting triggered way too soon, let's talk about this whole issue, because this issue started a couple of days ago when Sserafim had their comeback stage. They have their encore stage and it flopped, let's say. The whole internet heavily criticized that. If you've seen the video, you know what we're talking about. But where is the core issue of this whole thing? Let's look at what actually encore stages are. I think the biggest problem right now is that everything, every show, every live clip, everything is edited. There is a post-production almost on every single piece of media that you see where people are singing. Band solos, everything is edited. And people got so paranoid about actual live sound that they are looking at encore stages, because those are pretty obviously live. People, I'm sorry, screw them up pretty often. And you can tell that people can struggle. You can tell when people are walking around, when they're moving, like it's actually translating into their voice, which, you know, in some of the live stages, people can do backflips and their voice won't shake. And that's where people get really paranoid. And they do look at encore stages almost like the only source of like available performance that they can look at and be like pretty much 100% sure that that is gonna be live, even though even that is sometimes not entirely true. The industry standards are so screwed up when it comes to live singing that I've seen cover artists that did not post-produce their music, and they've been heavily criticized that they do not sound like the original artist or the idols that are singing that song in original, or even like other cover artists that are heavily post-producing their sound. So it all boils down to this encore stage, and it's really not fair because we all know how encore stage functions. It is a lot of, it's supposed to be fun. People who are saying, hey, encore stages are supposed to be fun are really right. They are not supposed to be this pinnacle of the only piece of live singing that you can get from the singer. They're supposed to be fun. Also, the idols are very tired. They're exhausted. They've been standing on their legs the entire day. They have been preparing for their comeback probably for the last month. They are dieting. Those kids are exhausted when they go on the encore stage, plus all the emotions from the win. So that's why you've got a lot of stress lifted from their shoulders, and now they're supposed to perform. And this is supposed to be the performance that everybody's gonna judge them based upon. That being said, we've got brilliant and very, very well done encore stages where idols did very, very well. Their vocals were stable, they were still having fun, and they did very good job. So yes, the inexperience and the quality and the style and technique is gonna showcase, because even if a very good singer, a professional singer, is put in maybe not the most pleasant surrounding, not the best conditions, they will still perform. Let's start with the first big influence, which is the ever talked about bullying versus constructive criticism. I've talked to a friend, a very, very smart one. He knows absolutely nothing about K-pop, and I asked him for his opinion to differentiate bullying and constructive criticism. Now, I have to say that I was really considering pretending that I came up with that explanation, but I've got to give credit where it's due. I do not steal other people's ideas. And I loved his explanation of bullying versus constructive criticism. And his explanation I absolutely loved, because that was such a simple sum up of bullying versus constructive criticism. He said bullying is very emotional. It's coming from an emotional place. you are trying to attack someone else's emotions, while constructive criticism is based on rationale. You have some parameters that you are utilizing to kind of recognize problem and maybe offer a solution, which very rarely happens, okay? But recognizing of the problem, that is literally the internet's work, right? If you go on Twitter or whatever other platform, you're gonna find so many problems. When it comes to bullying, it is definitely a problem. If you look at those kids, and I'm gonna call them kids because they're 14, they're 16, they're 20, they're 22. They're very young people, and a lot of them are little kids that are very vulnerable, extremely fragile. And imagine that at that tender age, you would get slapped with all that hate, online, offline, like sending trucks in front of the buildings. That type of pressure has to be literally crippling. And a lot of people grow a massive fear of live singing and performing, while that's literally their job. And that is the issue. It's literally their job. They cannot stop. They cannot really constantly come up with the reasoning why they are not gonna sing live. They have to move through that hurdle and start singing. It's really hard to work through a mental block. And I, as a vocal coach, I have to recognize it as the first person because I work with those people. I work with people that are terrified of singing, of speaking. I've worked with people that were told their whole life that they need to be quiet. And now they just want to get out of the shell, and it's hard. So I understand. But at the same time, the most important thing to really move on forward is to build up your skill, to invest your time in building that confidence, because only skill will give you the confidence. Granted, there are some people who have really low skills, but their confidence is through the roof. We're not talking about those cases. But the true confidence comes from the skill. So that is your first building block that you need to slowly start to rebuild that trust in live singing and have enjoyment, and at the end of the day, fulfill your job. And one of the bands that people were actually bringing up in the comments a lot was IVE. And now this is the moment where we're gonna see the difference between bullying and constructive criticism in the comments. IVE has been heavily criticized for their vocals, and then this year they came with one of the most vocally challenging songs, which is I Am. I was terrified. I have to be honest, when I heard this song, I was like, oh my God, this will be massacre. And not that I would not believe in my girls, okay? But that song is horrendous. It is a beautiful song. It is horrendously hard. So it is a tough and challenging song. And I was like, when this is gonna go to Encore, this will be massacre if they're not gonna cover it well. And they did. And I was gagged, and the whole internet was gagged, and everybody stayed quiet pretty much. They did very well. They did very well on all the live performances. Again, granted, most of them are edited, but on the Encore stage, they did very well as well. They focused on their singing. They went and worked on it. And they've been also very heavily bullied. So they definitely had to work through that block of people just calling them out again and again and again and telling them not to ever sing again and just, I guess, stop being an idol. And they turned that hate and utilized it and came up with like a really very heavily, vocally challenging song and being like, here, is this better? And the internet had to say, yeah, I guess. It's much better. That stage was not like 150%. Absolutely not. It had a tiny hiccups. It had a tiny flaws. But again, I mentioned what is the issue with Encore stages at the end of the day. But the massive difference that they showcased really just shut everyone up. Second thing, and now we can all hold hands and just kumbaya together because we are going to have the same enemy, I promise. The music decisions that some of the companies make about their bands, we can absolutely all agree upon. Because sometimes for the sake of aesthetics, we are choosing vocally really inappropriate songs for singers that have a very different range. And they're just like overall not suitable for them. And it applies on both overtly high and overtly low song. With Sserafim particularly, those songs are low. If you remember Fearless, I was so flabbergasted when I first heard that song. And I weirdly, I actually saw that song performed live. I'm not sure if it was the Encore stage. I think it was actually. And I was like, why is it so low? Let's put it 2 steps up and they're going to be perfectly fine. Like when those girls move and they have difficult choreos, like Sserafim is definitely one of those groups that have difficult choreographies. They could not breathe. Therefore, the low tones were just drowning, baby. They were drowning so bad that I thought that, yes, we're not going to get the same mistake again. Right? And goddamn, I was so wrong. And there are so many groups that suffer with the same thing. Usually it's because for the sake of the like a sound aesthetic, which I get, I understand that. Producer has a vision, company has a vision, that's understandable. But look what it does to the idols at the end of the day with those encore stages and accidental live singing where people are like, what the hell is going on? So honestly, I genuinely think that singers and idols should get their best foot forward when it comes to the songs. They should receive the songs that fit them, that suit them, that is within their range, and they can really showcase their best side and not just really struggle across the whole song, which is keeping it within their range. I don't have a flip side to this point because on each point that I'm coming up with, I'm giving you the flip side of a band that actually contradicted it and did it well. With this one, it's just a struggle for everybody. I know there's been bands and soloists that had songs that didn't suit them and they still did very well. But at the end of the day, we want to put the best foot forward. And I still don't understand why we're not doing it on regular, why it's just that not a standard. The next point that I really wanted to make is that a lot of people in comments were mentioning that idols do not get enough of vocal coaching and support from their companies. At the end of the day, we don't know. We're not insiders. We absolutely have no idea how much actual vocal coaching companies are providing to their idols. But it's definitely been a point that's been brought up again and again and again. I said that if dancing could be auto-tuned, we would just have pretty people in the industry at this point. And that's controversial. I understand that. You can rip into me. Listen, remember, not bullying. Don't be emotional. Be constructively criticism. That sentence made absolutely no sense. At the end of the day, companies should provide enough vocal coaching to their idols. It is them singing that is getting scrutinized and it's getting heavily criticized. It's literally like shooting yourself in your own leg and then trying to run if you do not provide a proper vocal education to your idols. My favorite example in this is probably Seungmin of Stray Kids. And I have massive respect towards Seungmin for what he's done. When Stray Kids started, Seungmin, based on what I understand from the history of Stray Kids, correct me if I'm wrong, Seungmin was not supposed to be the main vocal. There was another member that left Stray Kids that was supposed to be the main vocalist of Stray Kids. When he left, Seungmin was literally thrown in that position. It was pretty sudden. It had to be incredibly stressful. And even though Seungmin was supposed to be one of the lead vocalists and he was supposed to have a big chunk of singing, that was a position that he didn't count on. It had to be scary. It had to be really stressful. And one thing that I really respect is that he went and he got his own vocal coach and he started his private education, his private vocal education, because he felt that he needs to catch up. He needs to just, stand up and be a damn good main vocalist and just fulfill that position 100%. See, one thing that it boils down to, which Seungmin and other idols that felt like they need to work on themselves more. They need to have better vocal education than they are being provided. They went and got their vocal coach not because they were forced to, but they understood that this is their reputation that is on the line. Their reputation as a singer, their reputation as an idol. And I feel like it's something that is really honorable and really cool towards their fans that they are willing to go and pay for their private lessons. There are idols who are paying for private tutors when it comes to a variety of things. It's not just singing, but I really respect those people because this is what they feel like they want to do for their fans, the growth. And it always shows. Like when you look at, for example, again, at Seungmin, the growth is so incredibly visible. If you ask anybody from Stays about Seungmin, they are going to mention this particular thing. This is what they're going to tell you because they really appreciate it. And he knew that this is going to be a step forward that people will appreciate. And it's also going to build up his confidence as the newly made main singer of Stray Kids. The role that he didn't count it on, but he wanted to tackle it and he wanted to be very good at it. Again, we have no idea how much vocal education idols are getting overall in their companies. You don't know. And it's really difficult to say unless you have some actual verified information. But at the end of the day, they should have enough vocal education to be able to be actually confident in their skill and to be able to sing the songs that they're given. So that are two things that should be the basics. But at the end of the day, it would be the best solution if idols would get everything, all of the needed vocal education in-house. I think that would really benefit the entire industry because I know that singing is now, which is crazy. It's crazy to even say it like that singing is getting overlooked because it can be altered, but it is an inevitable part of what idol is at its core. Idols are chosen. Those are the people that have resilience, that have talent, that are hardworking. They go through very difficult process to actually become idols. We've seen it on survival shows, but overall, a lot of things that are also going on behind the closed doors, a lot of struggles, a lot of fights. These are people that are not there just because of their pretty face. And to claim that a lot of idols were chosen just because of their pretty face is really unfair. But there are always going to be standards. The standards are expected. And I really wanted to make this video because all you see is either people attacking and quote unquote bullying or people who are apologizing. So you have either bullies or apologizers. And we need to collide somewhere in the middle and understand that, again, you can be kind and empathic and understanding and caring towards your idol and fully understand and just be aware that they can have a bad day. They can have a bad mental state at that point, at that moment. They can be exhausted. You don't know what's going on, and you should have empathy towards other human being, whether you stand them or you don't. But it's perfectly fine, and you perfectly should still maintain your standards, and you should be perfectly able to recognize when the standards are just not fulfilled. And I think that for the fandom is a really healthy approach to the whole thing. And when we're going to start to do it step by step, maybe slowly, we're going to get, okay, well, never mind. I don't think that's going to happen. I wanted to say maybe we're going to get more live singing, but and at the end of the day, you know me. I react to live clips too. I react to shows like Dingo. I react to First Take. I react to many of the shows that we sometimes know that are edited and there is a post-production. I don't mind it. I understand that, you know, we want to present the idols in the best way possible. I wish there was more live singing, especially because a lot of these bands just don't genuinely need it. And I don't think there should be such a harsh standards on the live singing, because that might be actually the actual core of that all. That people have heard so much of the post-produced and altered sound of singing that when they hear live singing, they're like, ew, what is that? It's not perfect. Why do I hear him breathing? Like, why when he moves, his voice is shaking? Like, Why, when they go really low, their voice kind of disappears? Or when they do a triple jump forward, how they could not belt? Like, the standards, though, are all over the place at this point. So I'm done. That's the whole rant. I don't want anyone to receive hate for something that they cannot control, but I want the standards to be really there and for fans to recognize them and want them. And also, at the end of the day, when someone comes with those standards, appreciate them and give them their flowers. So, yes. Again, I understand that this is very controversial, and I said a lot of things that probably triggered a lot of people. Don't be too emotional in the comments, so therefore don't bully. Be rational. Constructive criticism. I love you guys. I will see you in the next one.